phase one, it's pretty dead center. So many areas of the map to lock down. You have the center part, the RTG currently have split around the power grid, Picado Hill region. RA are currently in San Martin. GK on our screens right now, looting up Picado, so they have an easy path line. I would recommend for EK shift up a bit to the east earlier on. Send one
Mm.
player on that kind of East Picado Hill. You'll be able to slow down and get earlier information on the likes of Nasser, the only one, or do Thunders coming in around that Lampadita Los Leones area. And as you get into phase number two, it will give a bit of a cleaner rotational point if it, let's say, goes up north towards kind of the graveyard area.
I'm always intrigued by teams, of course, approaching around Picado. I feel like EK do play a slightly dangerous game, and as you say, bringing that member towards the east would help them out overall. I
Yeah.
actually think that coming into the finals, squads like Conqueror, squads like RTG could maybe take advantage of that. However, I understand on the other half why they don't, because on the other hand, it could be quite an extended fight, being one far away on the hillside, still blocking the other from escaping, but no team really moving anywhere on the whole. So eventually they would run out of loot overall and be in a worse spot at the later point in the game. So over, I think, in terms of the entire game, it is more sensible that teams don't really approach GK and still let them do their thing.
Skyrockets a to the moon performance, you could say, in game one, picking up 29 points. They're currently looting up Valdemar. They have a solid entry point into the circle. They want to be cautious of 90th minute currently in Monte Nuevo, but again, they can kind of get a bit of a drop on 90th minute by taking that northern road line past La Drolera and even perch themselves on top of the hill overlooking Monte Nuevo to scout it out before they move forward. The one caveat, of course, that is an area I really wouldn't recommend teams going is that low ground in between Monte Nuevo and Picado, right? If teams go there, they're playing a much riskier game in the presumption that phase two, phase three is going to continue down south.
And I think rotation is particularly something important in Miramar and something that we talked about last game, sure, can come with their own issues, can also be punished. There's always a lot more Imperium in a map like Miramar because naturally that terrain is more volatile, it is more high or it is more low. And then also on the other hand, there are more open spaces between compound to compound. Now, first phase, that doesn't really impact us as much, but it's a setup in these early points in Imperium that are crucial into making those successful rotations later phase 3, phase 4.
Falcons. Yesterday's Miramar game was a massive dud for Falcons based off that. What I remember is a more easterly plane path. They tried to pick up vehicles earlier and kind of ran into the path line of R8. They lost a minimum of two players towards R8, and then they ended up going down very early. I think either Vista or the only one, but either way, it was
Yeah.
just like an extreme dud. Much better start to this Miramar game today as they dropped in the Cubby area. Will have a clean path line into the circle from the northwest side.
And I'm glad they changed that, and I'm glad you mentioned it because it's not the first time actually it's happened to
Yeah.
Falcons inside of this competition. So I'm actually surprised that they did try the same thing because in the previous encounter they did lose a player. They almost lost a second to Vista, and to try that again, be punished, I think it's right though, at least currently, because although it is more risky and although it's going to affect their standings now, it could be a lot worse in the finals. Trying that and learning from that mistake earlier before then allows you to adapt, as you say, and make those changes.
Yala Esports currently rotating from this Impala area of the map. They're kind of northeastern side, a little bit free to go to if they are aware of it. Only Power Esports tend to kind of drop around that El Azahar region. So I'm kind of surprised that they're going closer towards Los Leones than they are towards Graveyard, right?
Yes.
Because I think in around that junkyard, sorry, not graveyard, apologies, junkyard, but in around that junkyard area, you're able to, if you get there early enough, scale around those meanest hillsides and you're getting a lot cleaner information towards the center of the circle, and you're kind of away from the cluster teams that drop in between Los Leones and Puerto Priso.
As well, phase 1 now turning into phase number 2 here is all of these teams, for the most part, are going to be mainly centralized in this next shift. It is, I'm curious, so going to shift potentially towards the center or away. A lot of these teams already very centralized here inside of this first phase and going to remain centralized, crucially, in this second phase here is all about here Picardo here, all about that peninsula as well, of course, on that Envision game for the likes of RTG, for the likes of RA, who now are going to face a lot of these squads coming from the outskirts, these final rotators in on towards that center point as well.
Yeah, teams are in the center, but you can still see there's this kind of like gap between Picado Hill and kind of Picado Hill to the north and Picado Hill to the east. And Geeky have done what I suggested, which is kind of rotate away from the Picado Hill to the east side. What I didn't fully expect is that they have a pretty heavy spread from around the northwest of Los Leones to the far west of La Benita, right? So it's a bit of a 1-1-1-1. I like it. There's a little bit of risk involved, but if they hold on to, if they're able to push teams back, it will prove to be very positive.
And I think it's very crucial to be able to push teams back from a center like this, where we've seen a phase two such as this before, and teams who did struggle to get naturally in towards those more closed points of the circle to avoid those big shifts away from them later in the game did actually work out a lot better in those further away. On the other hand, Imperium, those later rotating teams, did struggle a lot more in a previous encounter like this.
Teams on the west will want to be a little bit careful because up until that Picado Hill spot, you don't really get too much information on teams that are around that east central area of the map. 90th minute, Enigma Galaxy, even to an extent R8 are a little bit isolated on their own, along with Falcons RTG still on top of that Picado Hill for the time being. GK had a player knocked, has been able to revive, but maybe they recognize that the split they had earlier on is a little bit too risky, so they're in a more comfortable 2-2 split for the time being.
And I like that you mentioned that they've kept these 2-2 splits because they're still keeping the idea of that control and that space of control. And that's crucial in terms of, as we said, keeping those players back. I think also in terms of RTG, they've also begun to spread out across this mountainside, as you can see, doing something similar, where they've gone from that full squad into a 2 versus 2 split. So making that control and making that area of control for yourself, very, very crucial, as we say, in these kind of points going into the mid game.
Hey, interesting with Yala. They're kind of committing to that more eastern southeastern direct rotation as compared to a more variable, wider northeastern rotation. A bit of a replay, by the way, what happened to that PK player. At the moment, Yala are to give them credit, even though I don't really love where they've gone pathwise. They're making it work, and they still have a full squad up.
And Yellow are in a mix of a different few of these teams. And it's going to depend on where this third phase really occurs, whether it will help them or hinder an Imperium. A lot of vote could change here.
Phase 3 shifts up north, right on top of R8, and the Picado Hill area, the RTG currently have a 3-on split in a round. Vista Gaming also looking very healthy on that northeastern side. Again, they were holding on to, similar to Geeky, only further away from the center circle, a really confident kind of 4-person spread. It will allow them to play around this Hacienda area in the hillside, overwatching it quite comfortably as a full squad.
And Power as well, of course, looking around this location. I think that for them rotating through Land Bendita, making that wider rotation, going to be very optimistic for them in terms of getting a good position. Also, Nasavo blocking them in around its graveyard point. So, however, on the other extent of that, I'm worried about NASA actually for these other teams because they're going to have a lot of control if they remain in this graveyard hill and try to offset these teams on their rotations.
Falcons do need to be careful. I don't like that they have Never Alone on that western edge of San Martin. I understand the premise of it, but they've already lost a player. Having a 2-1 split and taking that risk is to me not worth it. Where the two players are is very easy to get to that um position of their teammate if the next circle continues towards the city. To me, they don't need to have a player there.
However, they do anyways, is here Yala making that rotation, and as we said, the four Imperium NASA overlooking a lot of these teams rotating, but are still very distant from those teams on this Graveyard Hill, so Yala making that big wide rotation early does buy them the space to get away. However, Power, as well as you could argue here, Pride versus 90th, going to get caught, and as we said, that Power player too, Kante, caught by the only one.
And this minute need to start to get dangerous. They need to start to take risks, because slowly but surely their opportunities to make it into the top 16 will be running out. Not only do they have Vista Gaming on the tear behind them, but they are falling further away from the likes of Conquer Rack, from the likes of Falcons, and of course the only one. So I worry, and I very highly doubt that 90th minute will make it into the finals. But until the fat lady sings, the opportunity is still there.
I'll have to hope for them, Imperium. I still believe that anyone in it's anyone's game can get into the finals. Major are though a very tough opponent, and we've seen him be so strong this weekend. To be caught now so late on the rotation, it just looks a bit awkward in terms of 90th positions because they're so split, Imperium. And EMAD coming in this late, you really have to rely on them not coming down by Pride to open the door for 90th, and there it comes.
There you go. Yeah, Ninja does ninja his way into that knock, but you're right, that split from 90th minute isn't really the kind of split where they're ready for an engagement. They're ready to hold on to the edge of the circle, and they could lose a player as they have to Milky Way.
And I don't like that idea of positioning to hope that your opponents make a mistake. You have to put the onus on yourself to make those good rotations. And they see, as a result, Major still finding that punishment through. Nomi, though, also going to fall as Pride. I think also taking a bit too long in this fight generally, however, Imperium, and you can see them losing a few players because of this.
Yeah, they don't need to worry, though. They can afford to take these risks. They can afford to take these fights. So between the two teams, I'm not too worried about Major Pride. The next circle, by the way, did pop up, my friend, and they shifted down south. So it's really right on top of that Picado Hill.
You gotta feel bad for 90th because, as you said, the Major Pride, we don't care about their standings, right? We're only after that first place, so nothing really. I mean, yeah, sure, you talk about those PMGC points, but it's much more amusing in the moment to stop 90th on the edge.
Down goes Ardu Thunder. So although they got 10 points in the first game, going out early with only 2 points in the second game is not the way they want to go. 90th minute look to disengage. They lose a player once again to Major Pride, and it's fortunately a tale as old as time for 90th minute. They're too passive, they're too reactive, and they're not proactive enough.
However, 90th maybe just walking into another fire of Nigma is unfortunately also Skyrocket gonna bite the dust. Major aren't finished yet, though. They will mind the fact that 90th came in behind. They will get rid of him, but it's on the other edge here. Even more is the only one, and Yala stuck in combat.
This is great for Conquer Rack, the only one, and more importantly, Vista Gaming, the only one though, are in their only fight as Yala push on in. The crash is there, but Yala under a lot of pressure. Sanji's gonna get knocked. Luckily, Vista third party.
But quick knock by Live gets rid of one of Vista in what could be a crucial time because they too need to find a position. Thankfully, not in the midst of those engagements. As down on the south though, that's where the eliminations remain as Yala all fall away. Unfortunately, Live as well, losing their own life. Yala will be eliminated. Now, Nassar though, in between, as we said, this south part Imperium are playing like ninjas themselves in amongst them all.
Out of the 5 teams that we've lost so far, 4 of them are down in the bottom standings. Like I said, absolutely great for Conquer Rack and, more importantly, for Vista Gaming. Vista are on 3 eliminations so far. Conquer, they're on 0. They're both in a pretty solid position here in this Phase 4 circle.
And Conqueror have a excellent position, more so than Vista
They do.
here on this high ground. Also, RTG, another big controlling game for them. Very much on whether this zone will remain on Picado Hill, but if it does, I mean, RTG, we've seen them take over these types of games before. We've seen Nigma have this same position and completely roll over a game.
I don't know if Conquer Rack are in a better position compared to Vista. Technically, it looks
Mm,
like it, but I would argue that on a variably hard shift, that
right.
Picado Hills can be quite difficult to navigate around. Vista have more. Okay, they generally had more rotational points, but as it shifts down south, yeah, it's the worst kind of
Past
shift Vista
tense.
could have
Like,
asked for.
I mean, past tense is a crucial part to say about that now. Is
Castle
I think,
curse, bro.
yeah, maybe like my meanness and then your cast of curses Imperium is not great a combo for Vista. It's now we feel that pressure. R8 are all over them. Vista though on the front. Trovka needs to find the outplay of the century, but steps back down, not wanting to lose out completely in the position so far. But Conqueror also looking over. It is a complete disastrous spot.
I was so worried that Trafficker was going to make that solo push aggressively on his own, but I think those shots were simply to try and suppress the R8 players,
Yeah.
maybe get a little bit of information from that third person perspective. They can't get the revive up, I believe, so it does confirm Vista down to 3 players.
In Vista, though, important, of course, Trovka not losing their life. As we said, Dino Sunrise still need to get in a position where they can fight versus R8. Now, R8 still using those nades to keep them at bay. They're beginning to split out now for a bigger angle to try lure those nades elsewhere and allow maybe a flank to happen. But R8 are still in this control. The only problem is they also have to move into this zone because they too will fall under pressure later on, but they are very much enjoying R8 taking down these members of Vista.
It was never going to be easy for Vista Gaming right off the back of that circle shift. I think coherently they probably should have opted to disengage from that northeastern side rather than try and scale up the mountain on the northwest. There's nearly always going to be a team in front of them in that regard, whereas that southeast, even though it's more open, technically less teams were most likely going to be around them.
However, they still have at least one player alive. Dino is still there, and I'm hoping I haven't cast a custom and he'll fall in about the next 5 seconds. Imperium.
Yeah.
RTG, however.
Oh, no.
There it goes. I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. Unfortunately, Vista Gaming, it was a double cast curse. We went one each.
Still 4 points for Vista Gaming, so I'm going to argue not the worst result in the world. You're never going to have every game go your way between circle control and everything else, so it was within reason important that they picked up as many points as they could, and they kind of did. So 4 secured for Vista Gaming in this game too. Once again, still very positive for Conquer Rack. They're currently outside of the top 16 in the overall standings, so this Miramar game, the map that they are notoriously extremely strong on, needs to be a good one.
Needs to prove, I think, actually, the Conquerors still are really the kings of Miramar. It just feels like other teams have been surpassing them so far this tournament, but it's a nice one-for-one trade. At least Rio helps to find that security onto Batika. The second elimination so far as the guns are being warmed up, and NASA also stuck here on the problem of being outside another southern shift. It's the nade. Oh, that could have been even juicier.
Playing around this Picado Hill is so difficult. You're trenching dips. It's hard to see who's in front of you. You got to take risky jumps around. So it's not going to be easy for all of these teams up in the north.
Now, Savo, who I'm gonna lose a secondary player in this Savo, losing the players into the point that that rotation, as you said, it has to be slow. You need his players to allow the opportunity of those different angles. No longer the case. Rio will look for that final nade, will fall short as Ali goes back, but gets caught out on the rotation and uses him, plays him like a fiddle.
Yeah, great teamwork by Conquer Rack, creating those small entry points that Nasser probably should have punished them a bit more heavily for, but that's nothing against Conquer Rack and what they did up until that point. We are down to 6 teams, 18 players coming into Phase 7 shift.
Big point in the fact but a lot of these teams aren't inside the zone yet. Still in R8, one of them feeling the wrath of RTG is already will lose a player. The blue zone very much a threat coming in behind them at this point in the game. You can see how close it is. They had to abandon Cry, and now SK Tun and Prestige desperately searching for a side flank. Is Conqueror the same? GK in front, but at least the knocks are there. Conqueror making a big rush.
This is what Conqueror do so well inside Miramar. I don't know what it is about this map, but they seem to know every single dip, every single element of terrain inside this map so much more compared to Erangel and Sepa.
That nade did go wide, but it doesn't matter because the shots still are on target. Rio finds the first of GK. There, the revives may have only been to their downfall once more. Rio searching for the second, but the nade's being cooked up by GK. They step back as Conqueror look for the revive himself, but the blue zone, as we said, coming in behind, doesn't buy much time. Already engulfing him, but GK falling to the zone as well with the shots. It's Conqueror who utilize the third party of the blue, and now they have an entrance in.
Power are a little bit down towards the south, and they have RTG up and towards the north, so Conqueror need to try and hug this cliffside as much as possible. RTG will have heard all of those shots, all of that utility to that east side of them, and now as the circle centers up, none of these remaining three teams are inside the circle.
In a top 3 position for Conqueror as well here in this game, Imperium. This is going to bring them also up into the standings. This is going to give them the game that they can write home about. Is RTG, though, still a dominant force, as they need now to rotate down out of the zone. But the high ground, arguably a lot trickier here because Power's position, they have the dips to hide in, but we can certainly see all of those members. However, losing that first player does force them back.
You're right to point out the risk around the RTG's high ground position. The thing is, they have the body, they have the numbers to create that push, to turn that suppression from the high ground above them. Full squad up against Conqueror's full squad, and Power's potential, indeed, 2-man remaining team.
Power getting themselves inside the building. It's all about Power surviving, I believe, for them. They're going to hope they can get that second position, but RTG look very much on in their faces. Unfortunately, though, they lose one. It's that dip that we talked about. Aha, uses it to their effect and now gets around the corner. Going to look up very aggressively. Will be punished for it. J9 finds the bullets.
Indeed, RTG need to start to make some noise. They need to start to put on the pressure. They know that there's a minimum of 2 other teams around them, so getting the knock into one does not give all the security in the world on the remaining team around them.
The Conqueror, keep in mind, 8 eliminations. If they can get this chicken dinner, this is going to be a fantastic game for Conqueror, as we say, to get up those standings. The elimination points crucially up there along with the placements. Minimum 18 points so far, but they're searching for more. They will lose though a player on the rotation,
no,
but
won't.
Not to worry because they can get them back up again, of course. As is so coming now out with the right time, buys Conqueror the space as they too went for the flush, but RTG are there to shut them down.
Really good timing by Conqueror on that push down the mountain, knowing that they have RTG to the north and on the high ground, Power creating that beautiful distraction to move on into the edge of the circle.
And Conqueror still here alive, still using that angle ramp. They're holding it as long as possible. They know that Power are there. They know that there are shots elsewhere by RTG, and as a result, they don't play this too fast. It's about the patience, not getting too overly hyped. Is RTG, though, stepping themselves down one stepping stone at a time.
Thing is, Conqueror really have no true idea on the exact position of the RTG players. Similarly with RTG onto Conqueror, the thing is though, Conqueror have far less space to maneuver around and separate themselves away from RTG.
We talk about space, Imperium, look at Power from behind a tree. That's all they've got. And an unknown is looking under them with that smoke. It's going to dissipate, though, at some point, and Power will not be immune to the pressure of RTG, but they, too, want to utilize here Conqueror, the third team on this field, to help them delay the inevitable. Conqueror on the edge, though, in that blue zone. His face 8. Imperium, you get caught by that. there is no saving you. Unfortunately, Power now engulfed by the blue, engulfed by RTG's remaining shots. Desperate attempt will find Nabo though, and as much as Power will struggle here to the blue, they are going to keep themselves potentially alive here for the second place, but RTG, they will pull 2 members, and the door is open wide, and Conqueror leap through the front entrance, but it's still another blockade of even more behind the door that they need to answer. All 3 members of RTG clumped together. In Conqueror, they had everything in their hands with the edge of this mountain to control it. The drop shot, a final attempt, but RTG, it's not enough. In Conqueror, come out on top.
And that was such a good finish to the game because Conquer Rack and